Morning, everybody. Have you looked at your calendar today? Calendars are things we have, but we don't really think about that much. But they're very old. And our version of the calendar was adopted by the British Empire on this date, September 14, in 1752. Our word calendar comes from the Latin word calens, the first day of the Roman month. So even though there are older calendars than the Romans, that's where we get the word. One example of an ancient calendar is this one. This goes way, way back into time. It's in Scotland, and people theorize that 12 holes in the ground have something to do with the position of the sun in the sky. Now here's the Egyptian calendar. The Egyptians had an old calendar, so did the Mayans, people from India, the Chinese, the Persians, all kinds of old calendars out there. The original Roman calendar had 10 months. You can see the months listed here. The year of the original Roman calendar was about 355 days. By the time Julius Caesar came into power, and here he is, there was a sense that the calendar really needed to be reformed so it followed the sun and not who was in politics, because sometimes leaders would add days if they felt like it. So this chart with the 12 pieces of the pie reminds us that one of the reforms under Julius Caesar was 12 months instead of 10. And an idea they borrowed from the Greeks, and here's a picture of Greek astronomers, was to have each year be 365 and a quarter days with a leap year. Well, a big issue for the church as we get into the Middle Ages is the date of Easter. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the vernal equinox. But what if March 21 is different than the vernal equinox? And here's a chart that reminds us how the solstices and equinoxes are determined. But that's what was happening, is that when the calendar said March 21, the equinox was sometime else. So here's Pope Gregory, and our calendar is named after him, the Gregorian Calendar. And it was under Gregory that they tweaked the Julian calendar, the calendar of Julius Caesar, to be what we have today. Now, at the same time that Pope Gregory was looking at this, the Protestant Reformation was going on. Here's Martin Luther and the 95 Theses. So this really brought a lot of turmoil to the church. So in the mid-1500s, the Catholic Church met in Trento, Italy, at the Council of Trent, partly to respond to the ideas posed by the Lutherans and the Protestants, but also to deal with the calendar. And it was at Trent they authorized a new calendar called the Gregorian Calendar after Pope Gregory, and it came into existence in 1582 and was adopted in Western Europe more or less right away by the Catholic countries, but some places didn't. This is a calendar from France, called Gaul back then, that lived on long after the Gregorian calendar. Well, here's our event. September 14, 1752, the British adopted the Gregorian calendar, and you'll note on this calendar it goes from September 2 to September 14, so they just added 12 days to the calendar. And Ben Franklin, pictured here, who was 46 at the time, had a great line where he said, "This is great for people who love to sleep in, because they sleep in an extra 12 days." Well, in 1789, during the French Revolution, the revolutionaries thought they would do a new calendar, and one of their ideas was to name the months after things in nature, like wind and flowers and heat. That lasted about 12 years, and Napoleon got rid of it. Now, we've all learned ways to tell the months, how many days, 30, 31. Maybe you learned this when you were a kid, counting your knuckles. We all learned this poem, 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. Probably the only poem from the Middle Ages that everybody knows, but we all learned it when we were kids. So the next time you're looking at your calendar, maybe on your phone, maybe on your computer, maybe on the wall, you might think of Julius Caesar, you might think of Pope Gregory and the calendar we have today.